Dead Island 2 is one of those games that I thought would never come out, or if it did, it would have had the same reception as Duke Nukem Forever. But yet, here we are. And I'm happy to say that the game doesn't suck. From wacky side quests to huge one-sided fights and tons of crafting options, slaying zombies is just as fun as when Dead Island first released nearly 12 years ago. But what if you wanted to skip all of that? What if you wanted to skip the side quest, struggle in group fights, and never use crafted weapons? Well, that's what I wanted to find out. Can you beat Dead Island 2 while only using your hands and feet? The rules are simple. I can only use my fists and feet to cause direct damage. No curveballs, guns, or melee weapons can be used. Environmental hazards are allowed because there's almost no way I can stop zombies from walking to their deaths, and since I usually have to kick or push a zombie into them anyway, it just made sense to allow it. But the biggest restriction yet is no side quests. And this may not seem like a big deal at first, but since this is a looter shooter of sorts, side quests besides giving experience also give unique weapons or just more damage overall, and in Dead Island 2, even a 1 level difference can make what should be a normal enemy an absolute struggle. This is an obvious spoiler warning if you haven't beat the game to go do so before watching the video, but without further ado, let's get into it. The run begins like any other, watching the world dissolve into madness and then getting to pick our zombie slayer. I went with Jacob, mainly for the fact that he gets a boost to damage due to multiple attacks in quick succession, and I felt like that would give me just enough extra damage to keep up when levels became an issue. Because trust me, they will. Foreshadowing aside, and after somehow surviving a plane crash, I made my way outside to meet up with other survivors, one being a famous movie star, her skittish assistant, and a guy who can't hear because he has blood coming out of his ears.
You got some blood coming out your ears.
What? I can't hear you. I got blood coming out of my ears.
Well, I mean, what are we going to do?
After checking for more survivors, I stumbled upon a man stuck under some rubble, but sadly the lifestyle of the rich and the famous doesn't account for hard labor, so when I tried to free the man, the rest of the living pieced out. But looky here, another totally not suspicious person. I wonder if they could... Yeah, right. Time for action. Now, if you have eyes that work, you'll see that the tutorial here is wanting us to use this nice piece of steel we have. But that goes against the rules, so instead we're just gonna kick this zombie. Thankfully, this deals a little damage, and we get to see how my first metal show went. After disrespecting my surroundings, it was time to deal with more riffraff, and I finally got the chance to use my fists by throwing away my weapons. And honestly, fists are nuts in this game. Usually when playing a number-based game like Diablo or Borderlands, your basic attack sucks to incentivize you to use spells or stronger weapons to deal with enemies. But due to how fast the punches are, the fact that I get 5 stacks of damage boost from Jacob's passive, and the fact that my kicks can be interwoven to make zombies stumble, this playstyle is just as deadly as any other playstyle. At least for now, but we'll get into that later. Once the zombies had been dealt with, I tried to help the guy who was pinned earlier, only for his wife to turn on me, answer the question of what that mouth do, and have her husband literally rip himself in two to get out of his marriage faster. Ah, fast times in LA. I have a feeling I'm gonna have a great time here. But then disaster struck like a risky gas station sushi, and soon I was walking among the dead, coming in and out of consciousness, until I awoke lying in the back lot of Bel Air. But not like the, now this is a story all about how my life got flipped turned upside down Bel Air. This was more like the aftermath of a 3 a.m. Taco Bell run, and everyone was so dehydrated from dysentery that they were willing to eat and drink literally whatever they could get a hold of to not die. So naturally, I got to fisting the locals and committing tons of breaking and entering. But let's be real, who's gonna stop me? The guy with a hole in his face? I did eventually make it to Emma's house, the movie star from earlier. I was greeted to the worst homecoming party ever. First, I had a man afraid of his own shadow aim a gun at me, only to have a spicy hobbit try to shake me down for my second breakfast. And then to make things worse, Emma came in, and then the group of jackasses started playing hot potato with a gun while I passed out. After waking up, I got sent right back outside to deal with some trespassers. But this was just a by-the-numbers section of smashing some heads, finding a circuit breaker, and getting a gate to close. But I will say that I was now starting to see the flaws of a fist-only run. Dealing with mobs is where the true issues arose, because damage wasn't being dealt fast enough, and because it was all single target, I wasn't well versed in bob and weave tactics yet, so I just had to brute force my way for now. After dealing with the fodder, I made it back inside to meet with the only recurring character from the first game. What a gem. He gave me the rundown on how to craft weapons, and even the game got confused when I refused the upgrade. The weapon just kinda sat there floating in the air like some kind of ominous, "It's dangerous to go alone, take this bit." Before doing anything further, I went and checked with Emma, who informed me of an evac point based out of the Halperin Hotel, and luckily it wasn't very far from here. But due to everyone being more depressed than a 12-year-old who just discovered Hawthorne Heights, I left in search of an exit. Getting from Emma's to the hotel was pretty straightforward, but once I got to the hotel itself, I got my first taste of how much a difference in a level can make. One of the earliest bits this area has you fight something like 10 zombies in a lobby. If you're doing this with a weapon or a friend, this will take you 2 minutes tops if you're going slow. If you're doing this with your fists, though, you're gonna need to learn real fast how to dodge and counterattack. Not only is this a good way of dealing with a crowd, but you can also gain some health back if you set your perk cards up accordingly. I died here like 5 times before I could actually get good and deal with these guys, but this had me worried. If I was having trouble here now, how was the rest of the run gonna go? Thankfully, with enough brute force, I finally got through. The next area was a breeze in comparison. Someone decided to fill the hotel pool with gamer girl bathwater, and zombies couldn't get enough of the stuff, so I decided to help them take a dive. Unfortunately, some people were wearing hazmat suits to protect themselves from the e-girl juices, so I had to give them my best impersonation of Mr. Fisto. The rest of the hotel was full of zombies, but thankfully some maniac had recently binged all of the Saw films, so the hotel was overtaking me in kill count due to traps. But the traps were also too strong for my smooth brain, so I had some shocking times getting through. Arriving at totally not a boss room, I found a radio that I could use to call the authorities and find a way to leave Hell A. Dr. Reed came on the radio and tried to give me some directions, but then a bridezilla showed up. This would truly be a run changer. The first boss is an introduction to the Crusher Zombie, a slow-moving, heavy-hitting variant, with a ground slam to boot. However, remember how I said I got good about dodging earlier? Yeah, this is where that's going to pay off immensely. As long as you read the windup and dodge, you can keep your health topped up and jump over the ground attacks. This makes this one of the easiest bosses in the game and gives you a pretty decent leg up on future enemies. Plus, after defeating the bridezilla, you gain the ability to do a quake attack as well. And since it's us slamming our hands into the ground to do a shockwave, that's legal and a must-have for every zombie slayer's arsenal. After making it back to Emma's place, I let her know that Dr. Reed had a lab based out of Santa Monica, and if we wanted to get out of here, we'd have to leave now. But I was told that while I was out, Michael, the skittish assistant, had gone off running to Beverly Hills in need of adventure, and Emma wasn't going anywhere until talking to him. So guess who got signed up for search and recovery? That's right, this guy. To get into the hills, I had to deal with some checkpoint guards holding the key, but thankfully some zombies had a death wish and wore vests littered with grenades, and another carried electrocution supplies. They really do make my job easier sometimes. Now, in the general area, I ran over to Michael's house, and besides finding out how much of a grub he was, I found out that he had gone to see a girl named Jessie that he was friends with. Making my way to Jessie's, I ran into the Big Lebowski, but before he could let me in to talk about White Russians, he needed me to go fix a gate for him. Luckily, these guys owned a pool that some genius ripped electrical wires out of, so all of the zombies just kept walking into the pool and filling the air with the fresh aroma of burning hair. Speaking of burning, this is also where the burning zombies get introduced, and for a fist-only run, they suck. Because if you touch them, you take damage. Who would have guessed? But if you have a swimming pool nearby, they don't stand a chance. After fixing the gate, I was allowed in, only to find out that neither Jesse or Michael were here, and that finding Jesse at a construction site would be the only way of learning where Michael was. This dick better had gone off to find something really valuable, or I'm gonna be pissed. Thankfully, the construction zone wasn't too bad as there was another electric body of water, and zombies don't really like being kicked into a liquid electric chair. Finding Jessie, she revealed that Michael had gone all the way to Monarch Studios, a movie lot with tons of different locations and zombies to fit the theme dead on. Does anyone else smell potential DLC? Now, if you're afraid of spiders, you won't like this part, so look away. I arrived at the final movie set with Michael holed up in a trailer. This dumbass came all the way out here for an award that Emma won years ago. What the hell is that going to do for us in the apocalypse? But before I could strangle him, I came face to face with the next boss. A slobber. This is what you turn into when you drink the gamer girl bathwater. Now, by themselves, they aren't hard to deal with. If you stay close to them, they won't spit and will instead lunge at you. And if you've been keeping that dodge finger ready, you'll have no time smacking them around. But this boss fight isn't a one-on-one. Instead, this is what you'll be dealing with 9 times out of 10 out in the open world. A handful of runners, walkers, and shamblers get added to the mix. This combination is both a blessing and a curse. When the slobber spits acid, it stays on the ground so you can get the other zombies to run into them. Easy, right? Well, that's if you were up to level and maybe had some weapons. Being 2 levels below and having to take my time taking out anything trying to take a snack out of me threw a wrench in that plan. This boss arena does give you some props to help you out, but I found that by the time they activated, all the zombies chasing me were miles away. So I hope you like hearing the phrase,
All hail the God Spider.
because I died here quite a bit. The only strategy I can provide is to get in and deal as much damage as possible to the slobber when you have the option, and make good use of your ground slams to buy time to deal damage, get health back from dodging attacks, and try to use the pyrotechnics to hopefully catch zombies running through the flames, but this is gonna be a test of attrition. With the zombies taken care of, we get a call from Sam B to leave the useless assistant and instead come get some of that good quality grade A firepower. But like everything else in this game so far, there's a twist. Turns out that the house we'll be raiding was a famous hunter in her past life, but now she was the queen of all Karens and had to yell loud enough she could call for every manager from the tri-state area. Jokes aside, screamers aren't as bad as they first appear either. The scream slows you down, and when paired with multiple zombies, they act more like a support more than a main DPS. Luckily, the arena and where we fight had a lot of fire sources to take out the smaller zombies, but just make sure not to blow yourself up in the process. However, this is where my least favorite zombie variant reared its ugly head, the spiky zombies. These bastards are much like the other element-based zombies in the sense that you take damage when you attack them, which makes sense considering they're covered in spikes. But the reason these guys are worse in my opinion is because when you're in the thick of fighting, these guys look like just any other zombie, so I ended up losing loads of health before I even realized what was happening. But with the Mega Karen and her goons defeated, Sam ushered me upstairs to get a hold of some of that good. Some souped up firearms that I got to admire for all of 3 seconds before throwing it back at Sam, just as another zombie attack started. When I played this on my casual character, this section gives you unlimited ammo and just lets you go hog wild with the rifle, and guns in this game deal silly damage, but for Jacob here, it was back to the good old fists. After tenderizing the local meat supply, Sam and I headed back to Emma's with our new stash of guns, and wouldn't you know it, that sneaky assistant got bit. The one time he starts acting like a real human, he goes and gets all bitey, so Michael had to be let go. Seeing that everyone had the big sads after Michael's early retirement, I decided it was for the good of the colony if I left to go chase down the doctors in Santa Monica to see if my immune blood could be put to use to develop a cure. Only problem is that I had to travel via the sewers. Despite being yucky, a cable worker aimed to make my experience as pleasant as possible without paying extra for the movie channels. While I was down here, I also got to see what I'll look like in 10 years. Thankfully, the spirit of the sewers shielded me from that horrific sight and granted me passage into their home. This is Patton, an ex-helicopter pilot that lives down here due to role-playing as a Nosferatu one too many times. It's a straight diet of rats and homeless people for him, but he's a pretty chill dude and allows me to pass through his domicile to get one step closer to Santa Monica. Another brisk walk through the most beautiful part of LA, and then I arrived at the most totally normal, definitely not a boss room ever. While trying to walk across a horde of OSHA violations, I ran into Lola Conrad, the local motivational speaker who, after watching my up-and-coming boxing underdog story, decided I could use an extra helping hand. And how did she untap my true potential? By throwing me into a pit of zombies. It's not as bad as it sounds because this is how I gain access to Fury, an ultimate of sorts that lets me rip zombies to shreds when things get dire, and the final piece to the Zombie Slayer kit. From here on out, I'd be on my own. no more handouts. Emerging from the sewers, I arrived in Venice Beach. I was still on the path to Santa Monica, but it was still ages away, so I needed to find a place to rest for a while. And wouldn't you know it, just up the street was a group of survivors. Only problem is they were holed up in a restaurant with a queue of unhappy customers. Luckily, Jacob was a bouncer in his pre-apocalypse life, so naturally the zombies had to go and fences needed fixed. Inside, I met with the most useless bunch of individuals ever, just arguing and bickering and getting unalived. But I couldn't just leave these guys to suffer, so I agreed to go check in on some of their missing comrades to hopefully boost their numbers and give them a fighting chance. I found one of their friends named Moose, but Patton had found him first, and let's just say he's going to be skipping a lot of leg days in the future. With one other lead, I made my way over to the last of the friends known's whereabouts, except Dylan had been hitting the pre-workout a little too hard, and now I had to deal with a fire crusher and his spotters. This fight took a couple of tries due to being underleveled and dealing with fire zombies. There were fire hydrants around to remove the fire, but when the crusher did a slam, they left a pool of oil and fire, reigniting the zombies. But with enough kiting around, any foe can be brought down if given enough time. But if you think this game of Ring Around the Rosie was goofy, trust me, it gets so much worse later on. Making it back to the restaurant, I let the homies know that their friends had been disposed of, but I did get directions on how to get to the hotel. Only issue is I'd have to pass through a quarantine zone. Now, when you hear the words quarantine zone, you think of nice, clear areas with no zombies anywhere to be seen. That is not how things work in Dead Island 2. I arrived to a gauntlet of the undead caged into one area. Thankfully, ground slams helped me keep the undead at bay while I fought the stragglers, and with bursters thrown into the mix to help blow up groups of zombies, I just had to take my time, use fury to thin out the crowd when available, and not get too greedy. For group fights, having the skill card that regains health when you finish off a zombie is a must, especially when ground slams put all the zombies down. It's a great way to stay topped up in case you get trapped in a bad spot. With the gauntlet sorted, I finally made it to the Sterling Hotel. Not quite Santa Monica, but it's a start. I met with Dr. Reed, who had been talking to me over the radio, but the plan had changed. Instead of heading to Santa Monica, now we were heading for Colorado. How the hell we were supposed to do that, I couldn't tell you, but I was offered a place to sleep while he worked out the details for our trip. But in the most, I just gotta run to the store right quick fashion. When I awoke, he was nowhere to be seen. So I decided to mingle with the other survivors of the group, and instead of killing zombies or saving people, my next job was to go see why the plumber was taking so long. Poor Jacob is just the errand boy for the entire world, it seems. I did find the cause for the delay, though, an underground parking lot full of the undead. This fight took ages, mainly because I was really starting to feel the pressure of variant zombies like the Screamer, mixed in with a giant fire trap and zombies that were immune to the flames. This tiny car park acted more like a tomb as I had to kite zombies through hazards and trying to do as much ground slams as possible to give me room to breathe. This one room took 20 minutes of managing stamina and kicking zombies into an impromptu Mount Doom. However, I did manage to find Bob the plumber. Only problem is now the hotel didn't have a plumber. After turning the water back on and a long walk back home, Dr. Rita returned and told me that things had changed again. Apparently Colorado was off the table, and now I had to prove that I was actually special like my mommy said I was. I had to make my way to the nearby Boardwalk. Dr. Reed explained to me that the CDC set up some kind of blood testing facility there, and if I was able to get the machine working, then I'd be able to take a blood sample of myself to prove that I was truly immune. But when I arrived, it was clear that things had gone awry. The zombie workers had began on strike for better pay and thought I was here to break up their union. Sadly, they were in the way, so they had to go. With the workers sorted, I was able to get to the blood lab and grab a sample for Dr. Reed, which had him call over the radio and call for more lab equipment to actually analyze the sample. Don't you just love it when quest givers leave out info until you're already neck deep in zombies? So now I was off to recover a special computer called a blood drive, and to get it required going through one of the most cursed arcades ever. Not only was this a tight restricted area with low lighting with zombies 2 levels higher than me, there was an electric screamer added into the mix. This Karen would slow me down, causing me to just get jumped for all of my quarters. Cue one long panic-induced rumble-tumble gaming session. I tried ground slamming as much as possible to get room to move around and made sure to punch the screamer in the head every time I walked by. Anytime a fight asks you to fend off a group of zombies and all you have is your fists, you're gonna have a bad time. Which is exactly what happened right after this room as well. To find the special computer's last known whereabouts, I had to get on the other side of a Ferris wheel. Why I couldn't just jump the gate like I had been doing for ages now is beyond me, but getting jumped didn't help my quest at all. Plus, these jerks even had the audacity to start spitting at me. Now, since I'm such a pro gamer, I struggled here until I closed the gap on the zombies level-wise, making it a 1-level difference. I still got my ass kicked, but at least I could sort of keep up now. When I finally got the Ferris wheel to give me a lift, Dr. Roxo decided to make an appearance. But I gave him the boot back to rehab since it's clear that the last time didn't work out so well. Making tracks, I finally found the blood drive computer, only Dr. Roxo appeared to have placed it as a trap. Then the bastard tried to eat my face. Withdrawal will make you do some crazy shit, I swear. But time for a boss fight. This little clown here may look intimidating, but if you could dodge his attacks, he's a pushover. He also does this overhead stab that if it misses gives you a pretty good opportunity to just wail on him. The biggest thing you have to keep an eye out for is its ability to heal. After you deal enough damage, our little cocaine fiend here will stop and start munching on bodies in the middle of the fight. If you smack him while he eats though, you'll do some pretty decent damage and keep the fight going. As long as you manage to also deal with the occasional zombie that just strolls into the fight, this fight's pretty easy. Don't get greedy and you'll have this down pat first try. Now with the fighting sorted, I grabbed the blood drive and made the long hike back to Ocean Avenue, where I used to sit and talk to Dr. Reed, and if I could find him now, things would get better. Luckily, he was in his office, but so was Conrad. Both of them had beat around the bush about some kind of super secret revelation that wouldn't make sense until later. Then some goofy ass dude busted in the door spouting some nonsense about Dr. Reed's daughter running amok in the streets. So of course I got tasked with going and hunting her down. Turns out homegirl was just out trying to get a coffee in these trying times. And who can blame her? Coffee makes you forget about all of life's grievances. Now, you may have noticed that the screen gets a little wonky here. That's not the game, I promise. Since I only have one screen at the moment, I have to have OBS open and the game on the same screen, so I usually play windowed. In Fallout 4 and Skyrim, it's not a problem as the cursor is locked to the game. But for some reason, if you move the mouse fast enough, like when you're in combat, the mouse flies off the screen and usually ends up in a death. So I thought changing the screen resolution would fix this, but now I see that that was a mistake. Technical difficulties aside, Tisha informs me that Lola Conrad is actually the Elon Musk of this world, and if she's involved with Dr. Reed, there's a good chance that some Martian somewhere is being extorted for information. So I headed over to check out her store to see if I could find some hidden underground alien prison, and instead I got jumped by people trying to tell me about how great the newest iPhone is, when only the last one came out 3 months ago. Once the launch day customers were dispatched, I did some snooping around and found out that Dr. Reed did in fact have an underground lab. And you already know I went off trying to find that entrance. Don't worry, little green man, I'm on the way. I had to carve my way through some hazmat zombies posing as security and then found what appeared to be a lab with some poor guy infected with lumbago. After trying to hack into the blood drive to get some info, the once dead man arose, but doing his best impersonation of the Thing, a new boss fight began. This fight was brutal. These types of zombies are called mutators due to their ability to... Yeah, it escapes me at the moment, but I'm sure I'll remember it later. But jokes aside, this guy hits like a truck. If you thought the Crushers were your main damage dealers, think again. These guys have actual combo strings that I needed to learn to be able to stay alive long enough to deal damage. And due to the massive health they have, there was no such thing as a quick fight. Being 2 levels under-leveled at this point really started to take its toll here, as Dead Island 2 doesn't believe in one-on-one fights. One could argue that the zombies roaming the room could be used to get health back, and while they do, I found that they create such a distraction that you'll die more times because of them than stay alive with them. After a couple of tries, I managed to take down the boss and then had Tisha kick my ass for still attempting this challenge. When I awoke, Lola rolled up, said I was definitely special, but Dr. Reed had been pulling my leg this whole time. I raced back over to the hotel only to see a helicopter taking off. That bastard. He had me do all this running around, and for what? I went up and talked to the other survivors and found out that he had taken him and his daughter to a lab near Hollywood Boulevard. But since the plan had changed for the third time now, I figured I sorta kinda owed Emma one. So I gave her a call and organized for her and Sam to meet me at Patton's place. He knew how to fly and maybe needed some light persuasion to get out and see the sights, but then everyone could make a grand escape from LA. Surely this plan would work out for all of us. Except, remember how I said I was 2 levels below enemies and I was struggling with bigger fights? Now I was so underleveled that every zombie had a skull icon instead of a level. Dead Island 2 warned you at the beginning of the game that if you see this, you need to come back later. But we've come this far and I'm not stopping now. I managed to run past a couple of fire zombies guarding the entrance and met back up with Emma and Sam and introduced them to Patton. Like a man seeing a god, Patton dropped to his knees, but then Sam tried to introduce himself.
And I'm Sam B. You know, who do you voodoo, bitch?
I guess Patton doesn't like rap music, but we did get him on board to fly our helicopter, if we found one. Cue up the metro sequence and now the actual struggle could begin. Consider this as the point of no return and everything before it as practice. I'd have to brute force my way through any obstacle this place threw at me. Granted, most of the beginning areas are just lowly level enemies I could just run past or fight if I absolutely had to. I figured this wouldn't be as bad as I thought, but then I got to this area on the screen and then I was told to find a key to move forward. I was going to have to fight them all, wasn't I? Runners made it very clear I wasn't welcome here, but then I saw it, the mutator. And then I was dead. Coincidence? I think not. This required the biggest and longest game of Ring Around the Rosie ever. I told you it would come up again. I took out the smallest zombies when I had a chance to and lured the mutator around a train. And look, for it being slow, this was safe. I just made sure to keep it in sight, ground slam when it got close, and then run to safety. As long as I kept track of it, this would... Oh, Jesus! How I didn't die here, I'm not sure. But after about 20 minutes, the mutator was dead. And I could finally move on. Now, I'm not gonna lie. I suck at puzzles, okay? And most of the time, I end up completing them in the most roundabout way possible, or I just run into a wall long enough that I somehow complete them. So when I came to a room covered in water with electrical wires going into it, I just bounced across from platform to platform until I made it to a door where I needed a circuit breaker. No problem, I thought. So I headed back out and found a circuit breaker on the other side of a fence ages away with an electric screamer yelling at me. This took a couple of tries to throw it over the fence without dying, but with my new key out of here secured, I ran back to the door, opened up the next area, and as I ran away, I saw another circuit breaker pop out of the wall, literally 3 feet from where I just was. Why didn't I see this earlier? But that puzzle had nothing on what was coming next. A 30-minute struggle of every single type of enemy, minus the mutator, thank God, thrown into one room, and that the only way out was to kill them all. Thankfully, this is in waves, and there are some hazards to help thin out the zombies, but damn, this did my head in. For the first wave, you can pretty much lure every zombie into a pool of acid, and to be honest, that's where a lot of these guys are going to end up. Hazmat zombies got the boot, and then I ran laps while waiting for my stamina to recharge to do ground slams. Considering every zombie at this point is about 3 levels above me, all it took was one mistake and I was dead. So using the environment to my advantage was crucial to surviving, because if I died, I had to do this entire part over from the beginning. With the zombies killed, I hopped on a train to Hollywood Boulevard and had to fight my way through the subway station. But upon watching Patton ascend to the heavens like the angel he is, and then making it to the chopper, Sam B finally felt the burden of carrying the team. And Patton says he wasn't going to go anywhere until I actually finished the game. Typical good guy ending, I guess. So even with the way out of here unlocked, I had to head off to track down Dr. Reed. So off I go, and here is where I get to experience the closest thing to walking down a red carpet, while following a trail of tracer bolts left by Tisha. I managed to open a secret passage to another hidden lab, and looky who I found! Reed spills the beans that this whole time I was running around for him, it was actually just a prank, and that his daughter was actually the secret to ending the zombie plague. But before he could finish his speech, that beefy 5-layer burrito from earlier started acting up, and now I had the final boss to deal with. For a final boss, in my opinion, I think this does well for half of it. This fight took me over an hour to finally get done. The beginning is just a one-on-one brawl between you and the Rubinator. He has the exact same moves as every other mutator, but even if you're rusty, the tell to each attack are very noticeable and easy to dodge. After you get some damage in, 2 normal zombies will join in, and these guys just act as a distraction. Ruben can kill them with friendly fire, but they do make keeping track of your surroundings more difficult because this room is pretty small to begin with. However, where this fight gets dumb, in my opinion at least, is the more it goes on, or based on Ruben's health, canisters open up around the room, spilling in variants like screamers and crushers. If you have guns and use your curveballs, this fight isn't that hard, but for me, the longer this fight went on, the less chance of success I had. There were just too many things to keep track of, and too much damage was being dealt out. I found out that the fight was generous in the sense that most enemies dropped a med kit when they died, but also if I managed to get Fury to fill up while I was here and died while trying to use it, I got to keep it for the next try. I tried Fury out and saw that I could at least get him down to half health before it wore off, but this just started letting variants in, and usually I died shortly after. So the strategy was somehow get Dr. Reed to half health and then hope Fury could finish him off. This was so much easier said than done. I had to damn near perfect his entire moveset and still deal with other zombies running around. But when I got him to go into a weakened state, which was usually about half health, I jumped the gun, and even with Fury, he still had a sliver of health. I threw myself at this fight for ages, but finally figured it out. I'd have to bring him down to just before he went into a weakened state, then use Fury to just go nuts. This would give me enough time to actually deal enough damage before he got up to finish the fight. The final cutscene triggered, and now I could make my escape. It was time to get the hell out of here. I made my way through a ton of zombies, but since the game wanted to be nice to me, it gave me a ton of Fury to make the trip back through the red carpet a lot more enjoyable. Once again meeting up with the homies, Sam B got a dose of some black market medicine, and the gang was now clear for liftoff. Jacob decided to stay back and finish the good fight, but everyone else left in the helicopter. But it was clear Patton's driving skills were a little rusty, and if Sam B and Emma never return, I won't be surprised even one bit. With the game finished, Jacob picked up Sam's hammer and went to town. The man had earned it. His fist carried him through the whole game, so why not give him an award? This game is a blast. Even while doing this challenge, I had fun. Even if some parts seemed stacked against me, the run never felt unwinnable. And even if you're not looking to challenge yourself, this game is a super laid-back experience that gives you tons of options to just run around and goof off with friends. Or just have a relaxing killing spree while you hunt for exotic goodies. I highly recommend this game to anyone who likes a good zombie hack and slash, and if you're a glutton for punishment, then this challenge is right up your alley. I'm not sure what the next video will be yet, as plans change constantly, but if this does well, I'll look at exploring other games besides Bethesda franchises in the future. As always, if you've liked the video, make sure to like the video and consider subscribing, as it helps the channel out a ton. And if you have a suggestion for a video, make sure to leave it in the comments below. Once again, I've been Chris from Crisis Gaming, and I will see you on the next one.